Well, where do I begin? Considering that Trinidad and Tobago has now crossed 500 murders for the year thus far, with 2 months still left to go. In South Korea over the weekend, 154 people died following the first no-mask gathering for Halloween. Then in India, suspension bridge collapsed where 141 people have died thus far. And in Kinshasa, 11 people died in a stadium over the weekend. Where do I begin? Perhaps with good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. It is not my intention to depress you, ladies and gentlemen, but rather for us to open our eyes to the reality of not only where Trinidad and Tobago is, but the rest of the world is suffering. And though this talk show, this current affairs program, focuses specifically on Trinidad and Tobago, let me say there's quite a lot to get into with good news and bad news. And mostly, unfortunately, bad news. Alongside me is my co-host and colleague this morning, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And one other thing that I find interesting, there are apparently a couple of terrorist attacks that have happened in the last couple of days. One in Iran itself, a country that's more or less, I don't know if besieged is the right word, because who is actually sieging whom, where you have the population protesting the acts of the morality police and the government by extension, as well as the government trying to crack down on those protests. Could it be that the economic situation has caused the population to be less tolerant of the government's excesses, and vice versa? As we've seen, unrest is not something new in these times across the globe. Meanwhile, I think with regards to the murder rate, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe 536 is the highest that we've had. Is that correct? Or have we had a higher rate?
No, I can't recall at the top of my head right now, because I'll be very honest with you, I've been following this entire situation, and all these numbers are just splitting in my head. All I can recall is we were around 350 for this time thus far. I think the highest is over 570, although I could be correct, so we can do a quick search on that.
Well, so the reason why I say that is, so according to one online source, our murder rate more or less climbed very steadily and peaked in 2019 at 536. So from 2014 to 2018, it was going from 400 to over 500. And then it was over 500 for 2 years. However, we've already reached 500 with 2 months to go. Now, some of the lower months murder rates per month would be 1 a day. So we are potentially looking at 30 murders, more or less, each month for the next 2 months. We will end at 560. That is potentially the low end, because we've had months with as much as 60 murders this year, which means we could go as high as 612. This would probably be the year with the highest murder rate on record. We're already on pace for that. So now I think it seems as though it's not necessarily if this will be the highest murder rate on record for a year, but rather how high will the bar, the tragedy be set. That is more or less what we're facing right now. Now the question is, what will the Christmas season bring? Will it bring more robberies, where it'll be crimes where property will be stolen? Does not necessarily mean it has to include violence. However, given the state or rather the criminal acts that we've seen over the last couple of months, I'm not sure if it's wise to expect criminals to behave with enough rationality and reserve to, say that, okay, we're not necessarily going to see violent crime. Violence is probably going to be in line with the robbery. We saw with the penny savers robbery that they didn't even ramp up to violence. They opened it with extreme violence from the start. So hopefully criminals looking to get a buck are not just going to go straight for that next level of criminality where attempted murder or murder is on the table, because the breakdowns they'll just continue further.
Well, I think 2008 had 529 murders, which on record seems to be the highest, although there are those who actually argue that the toll for that year in particular which saw 40 murders in the month of January alone, is closer to 550. We're well beyond the course to pass that. 506 as we speak to you this morning. And I suppose, ladies and gentlemen, Sean, Michael Small, and myself are just repeating ourselves perhaps from an episode of last week Friday, from episodes prior to this morning. But it's the harsh reality that we will continue to repeat ourselves simply because nothing has changed at all. There's no good news to report on the side of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and the Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, says, well, according to him, he understands the trauma that citizens are facing. He's asking everyone to be vigilant and everyone to play their role. What, to me, it's frustrating is that, and I tie this back a couple of weeks ago to what Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley stated, following the budget and the entire budget debate, he stood on a platform and he said that his conscience is clear. I don't know if those were his exact words. I do remember the other part of him stating that he has done his job. You know, as Prime Minister, he has done his job. So essentially, in my opinion, he was declaring that his conscience was clear. And he said every other citizen in Trinidad and Tobago in question, have you done your part? Have you done your job? Do your job as well. But in a nation which has fallen to the pits of criminality and gang violence, where we now live by the gun, because if you're not protecting yourself through whatever mechanisms possible, you're now dying by the gun. And then also when economy, no matter what the Minister of Finance suggests, because I'm not stating that everything he says is wrong, but if you listen to him very closely, an economy in which every government looks to generate revenue, or at least new forms of revenue, we have not done that. Where it's very difficult to get foreign exchange, where the majority of the population is unbanked, where it's very difficult for people to now access loans and small businesses to survive, whilst there are other companies that eat up foreign exchange that are opening new locations every other month here in TNT. Where there is no Ministry of Labour, because up to now I don't know what the work from home policy is, or where is the digital vaccination cards. What's the point of a Ministry of Planning? What is it that they plan? And the Minister of Public Utility says WASA has fixed thousands of leaks across Trinidad and Tobago when there are multiple potholes. I took a drive into Chaguaramas yesterday and outside the Chaguaramas police station. There is one massive leak, and I'm not even exaggerating, that in itself will cause a massive traffic buildup. I don't know how the Prime Minister, especially this morning, could look as a nation and honestly say, I've done my job.
Well, so in the overall governance, has he done his job? That's debatable, as you just pointed out, because we have some basic problems that can't be met. And I would say that he might have reasons why certain things can't be met, but the communication or the lack thereof, more or less, you know, if you don't want to communicate properly, don't complain when we throw you to the wolves with regards to why are these potholes such a major problem? Why is our road infrastructure so bad? Why is our drainage so bad? Why is certain government programs so bad? Why is the Ministry of Education seemingly in such a mess? Because trust me, folks, they are, I think the amount of issues we have with our education system, from facilities to the academic progress of our students, in multiple ways. I don't have any definite proof, but there are way too many warning signs from way too many directions. But I want to go back to national security. The Prime Minister, over the course of the appointment saga that saw the collapse of the previous Police Service Commission, what did he constantly say? Right? This is not a conflict of interest. I have a right to be involved in this matter because I am the head of the National Security Council. And by that basis, on that basis, I am communicating with the Police Service Commission. So with regards to crime, I cannot see how the Prime Minister could say he did his job. Because not only is he the head of the National Security Council, in a year that we have, the lowest murder rate per month is 36. And we have 4 months where it's over 50. January was 52, April was 53. This is based on the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service's own statistics. July was 65 and August was 68. We have a month with almost 70 murders. That is over 2 murders a day. Over 2 murders a day. Almost 2.5, no, almost 2.3 or something like that, right? With technically, the TTPS does not have statistics for September, October, but we're right now saying that it's 500, over 500. At that rate, Keaton, we're probably going to have, again, like I said, somewhere around 580 to 620 murders at the end of the year. So in a year where we're going to have potentially record-breaking number of murders, the Prime Minister, as head of National Security Council, because he has conveniently used that hat that he wears, his other hat, right, in his arguments for the justification for being involved in a matter that by the Constitution the Prime Minister is not supposed to be involved in. You haven't necessarily done anything to stem that flow here. And also, more importantly, he appointed the Minister of National Security, whose only accomplishment, Keaton, is basically to undermine the confidence the country has in the national security apparatus and the safety and security of the country from among its own citizens.
First of all, you hit the nail on the head when you said the Prime Minister wears his hats conveniently. The Prime Minister, in my opinion, is yet to actually run a nation or is yet to govern a nation. The Prime Minister, in my opinion, seems to just be very convenient when it comes to politics. I don't think the Prime Minister has moved away from party politics in order to govern Trinidad and Tobago. Because the mere fact that every single thing is now surrounded by, well, this is what the United National Congress did, this is what they did, this is what we do. For example, when this entire situation surrounding Vincent Nelson arose, the first thing that the Prime Minister spoke about on a platform was how the country lost millions of dollars because of the smelter plant, a Chinese company, under the People's Partnership. That's what he spoke about. And thankfully, the media didn't pay a lot of attention to it because, again, it was a distraction. So he turns into party politics. Again, not being the Prime Minister and responding to the situation, but rather wearing your hats of convenience. Because at one moment, I'm the Prime Minister. The one moment, I'm Prime Minister, head of National Security Council. And then the other moment, I'm completely silent. Or I'm just playing party politics. You spoke about Fitzgerald Hines. You're absolutely right. Fitzgerald Hines has done nothing more but to make a nation live in fear. And I hold him responsible for this. I wouldn't say solely responsible, but as the Minister of National Security, and probably a minister with one of the biggest mouths in Parliament who always has some sarcastic comment to make or some nonsensical contribution. Quite frankly, he has failed in every other area. Although, you're right, in undermining national security services. He has been very successful in that part. And quite frankly, thank God we know that Fitzgerald Hines can be successful at something.
There's nothing wrong in pointing out the mistakes of your opposition, right? There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when trying to use that to defend against your mistakes or your potential mistakes or the perception that you're not doing enough. Because that has actually no bearing on the matter at hand. Whatever the UNC did way back when has no bearing with regards to how you managed the prosecution of the case. The prosecution of the case should be the story. The case, the potential corruption, should be the story. Not the fact that, well, they did something bad here, so we could do something bad as well. That's not how it works. There's no tit for that. There's no fault first fault, right? Because the opposition, because the UNC did something wrong, doesn't give the PNM a pass now to do something wrong and then we even it out. That's not how it works. Also, interesting enough, you want to talk about the Prime Minister conveniently wearing hats? When it came to the matter of ANV drilling, almost the entire government conveniently forgot that they wear the hat of government who are agents of the people, who are supposed to act in good faith on behalf of the people, right? However much money that was lost into whatever matters during the administration of the People's Partnership, what about the money lost because of how the matter was handled with regards to ANV drilling.
Well, this is the thing. How is it?
How many questions are up in the air about that?
How is it that the government can justify actually appealing the $8 million case that has been ruled in favor of Jawala Rambaran, whilst at the same time not appealing the $100 million case that was ruled in favor of Mr. Baksh? How is it that the government justifies that? The thing is, we all know, we've
have
made
they
it clear.
even said anything on it?
Well, listen, according to what column Imbert, a case is only sealed until appealed. Some nonsensical comments he made again. This is the thing.
Never have an engineer speak on legal matters.
Never have an engineer in the capacity of column Imbert run the economy. But anyway, let me not get too caught up in that. You see, I also blame the opposition as well. Right? Because quite frankly, in these times, when you have a personality such as Dr. Keith Rowley, and he's a very strong personality,
yes,
right? And as I say, as opposition leader, I think he was very good as opposition leader. However, we don't have a strong opposition now. There are strong members within the opposition, very strong members within the opposition, but not a strong opposition party. And you would think that they would stick to these things. They would always have the government on their toes. They would always be arguing, but they don't do those things. Again, it's a rhetoric that they come up with which confuses the whole matter. Prime example, look at Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak needs time in the United Kingdom, right? The reason why I'm using this comparison is because Keir Starmer, who is the leader of the Labour Party and the opposition in the United Kingdom, is brilliant. He's had Rishi Sunak on his toes, and Rishi Sunak has had very soft responses. Though he needs time, Keir Starmer has been a brilliant opposition, in my opinion, not letting go. According to one individual, he's bowling bouncers, he's bowling Yorkers, and Rishi Sunak is having his best to defend his wickets. This is the thing. In TNT, the opposition has a role to play. And I do not think, and there are instances which I have praised them for the work that they've done. But I don't think, given the time, given the circumstances, given the strong personality of the Prime Minister, and given where Trinidad and Tobago is, they could have been a much stronger opposition party as well.
One last quick thing. The Prime Minister also wears the hat, whether we like it or not, this matters, as political leader of the PNM. And as political leader of the PNM, he appointed an Attorney General who has had an incredible number of fumbles and bumbles, including, it appears, by what information we have out in the public domain, the setup with the indemnity deal in the Vincent Nelson case. And the government has not, I don't believe, been able to come close to giving us a satisfactory explanation as to why they went down this path. The case has discontinued. Some would argue that it's collapsed. On some level, he can't even act in that capacity properly, because the amount of mistakes that he is allowed with regards to the legal side of his administration on some very important matters. And you could argue that the public health regulations, that's one of the major issues, or one of the main failings with regards to the government COVID-19 response. The regulations themselves and how they were enforced. And that potentially was the area where, or one of the areas where the former commissioner and the cabinet, the administration, split. But then you're right. Meanwhile, you have some such glaring holes that the opposition cannot seem to find. Some obvious things to hit the government home with. And for any little thing, they will call for elections now and call for the Prime Minister to be removed. The problem is, now, when such calls might be a little bit more realistic, might be a little bit more pertinent. We've already heard the wolf being cried for the last 7 years. I don't know if a lot of the population is going to take those cries seriously now, when we've had quite a few more important issues go wrong for the government. And the opposition might, if they did it right, if they played their cards right, would have had a more realistic expectation and say, look, this is the culmination of 7 years. This is where we are at with regards to a lot of different things going wrong. And the direction of the country, could we say that it's going to turn around and trend upwards? No. right? But they spent the last 7 years crying wolf over every little thing, are the moderates as well as PNM supporters. Anybody who is not their base is going to take them seriously.
I'll tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion, this debate this morning. There's another topic I'd like to get into, but that's secondary to what we're speaking of this morning. So we'll be right back after this.
Delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
You know, quite often we are told that sometimes you don't look at the positives. And I'll be very honest with you, you may have a point to anybody who has suggested that in the past. But there's also a side of it that it's very difficult to find any positive news. But I will admit, this morning, we are alive. And we're very fortunate to be alive. We're very fortunate to be here. And if you're viewing the program, well, that's also very fortunate as well. Given the instance that here now, at any point of time, you don't know when your life is going to be snatched. And you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen today. So live it in the best way you can. That's my advice to you. And I think you've heard that many a times before. But having to repeat it just to let you know, these moments, this time is absolutely precious. Live it well. As we continue the conversation this morning, I wanted to get a bit into, the heavy showers experienced across Trinidad and Tobago over the weekend. But I'll put that aside for a moment. I'll talk about that after 9 o'clock. I was enjoying the conversation that we were having, and I realized to myself that though people might say it will be very unfair to call Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley a failure, there are many areas in which he has failed. I think the one area that I can say, right, which is still debatable in many people's eyes, but the one area I say that I would give him a passing grade is his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. There was still, many flaws.
Yes.
It's still very much debated, but I will give him a passing grade.
I think, relatively speaking, out of COVID, I don't think COVID, we need to understand that the price increase, the inflation was, yes, indirectly because of COVID, but this is international pressures with trade problems and shipping issues and container shortages, right?
Right, so
that came from COVID,
factors,
but
right?
that has nothing to do with our government's COVID response.
But I think, to me, one of the Prime Minister's biggest failures, and perhaps his biggest failures, is who he's appointed to his cabinet. I think, to me, that is one of his biggest failures. We've had this debate of Colm Imbert before.
Yeah.
We've had opinions of Colm Imbert was the only individual, and it's not just from one former Minister of Energy, it's from many people whom I've heard that Colm Imbert was perhaps the only individual whom he could have placed in that position. I disagree. Perhaps Colm Imbert was the only loyalist, or the only party member, or the only puppet.
So who would, I don't know if you could call Colm Imbert a puppet.
Put it this way. Colm Imbert is only concerned about himself, as with many other politicians. But why would I call him a puppet? Okay, maybe not a puppet. Maybe not a puppet. But he really is a suck-up. You know, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. It's not my intention to be disrespectful or rude, but I'm trying to find the most appropriate way to describe these individuals, our ministers, it's my minister as well, in the most appropriate manner. He is a suck-up. Also, let's speak about Fitzgerald Hines. We will exhaust that conversation.
To me, Hines and Alwari are at the top of the list.
Arawi, you see, this is the thing. Arawi could speak, and Arawi could speak for a very long time, but you can say nothing. You can write a book and still say nothing.
Exactly. From what it appears, he oversaw, because he doesn't seem to write anything himself. He oversaw the public health regulations where it was debated. The former commission did not want to even go on the record to say that the TTPS will go into people's houses. That all came from the politicians who technically cannot order the TTPS to do that, especially when there's questions about the legality of going into private properties based on the public health regulations as they were written and breaking up private events in private homes. Right? Again, based on how they wrote the regulations. And then there was also the adjustments with regards to the commissioner. When he said, well, I wrote it, it's a good law, and then when the judge struck it down, well, I didn't actually write it. The senior counsel actually wrote it.
Advice of
right? But he claimed to have written it at first. And of course, we have the indemnity deal and what that did to the DPP's case and the DPP's plea agreement with regards to the prosecution of 2 potential corruption cases.
But then also, look at Stuart Young. Stuart Young, again, could speak, but sometimes speaks absolute nonsense. For example, suggesting that Trinidad and Tobago has a capacity to help the situation with the global food crisis. We can't even help ourselves locally with the global food crisis.
Yeah,
we are so dependent, so dependent on imports. And then the other side of it, he said, we are conscious of the effects of climate change. Everybody in Trinidad and Tobago is conscious about the effects of climate change. Nobody's doing anything about it. That's the thing. You can be conscious about every situation. The Minister of National Security could be conscious about national security matters. Guns coming in.
Yes, he's very conscious about it.
The Minister of Youth Development and National Service could be conscious about the fact that there are youths who are probably shifting away from tertiary education who are not even concerned anymore because they know that they're not going to get a job when they graduate from university. What are we being done about it? So my question is, even Nine Gaspioli to me, overall, is a decent Minister of Education. The issue that has found its foot on its doorsteps is the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and classes at home, but also the conditions and state of our school infrastructure.
Here's the unfortunate position that she's in. We're assuming that she's a decent minister because, generally speaking, I have a hard time thinking that she is making all of these decisions with regards to the education ministry unilaterally on her own. I highly doubt that, right? So I don't think it's fair to put all the blame on her. The flip side is we don't have any indication that she's actually good, right? All we could say is that we don't think she is responsible for the bad, especially since, to be fair, she inherited a horrible situation, right? But there's no good work to her name. So to me, it's not that she's a good minister. She's a question mark that I would say, please do not attribute to her what is probably decisions made above her head.
So overall, the question that I would ask any viewer this morning who's watching the program, and if I had the opportunity to interview every single government minister, I would simply ask them...
Which they don't allow.
It's not that they don't allow, it's extremely difficult. There are those who are very warm and receptive. For example, Keith Scotland, as much as sometimes he can make a fool of himself, he was very open and welcome to coming to WSN to speak to Kemuel, right? There are those who have made the effort.
Yes, that is true. You have to give them credit for that.
So you have to give them credit for that. Even if we disagree with what they're saying, and even if sometimes they don't understand or realize what they're saying, they still make the effort to come. For me, the question that I would ask all our viewers this morning, and please feel free to contribute after the 9 o'clock news on the hour. And if I could interview every minister, in what way, or what have you done, or how have you contributed to the development of Trinidad and Tobago? And let me just put in one word there, the positive development of Trinidad and Tobago.
But I want to go back to where you started off this segment. Who besides Corbin Burt would you put from the current government administration as Minister of Finance?
From the current administration?
Yes.
That's what I said. He was the only individual within the party, perhaps. The
But
only
because
loyalist.
I thought you were...
No.
Right, so
he's
he's
the only loyalist.
So then
quite frankly, I don't think there's anybody right now within the cabinet who I can see.
So you would prefer somebody outside the cabinet?
You can bring somebody outside. Okay, if you prefer that they be a member of the People's National Movement, all right, as per politics.
Well, it's not realistic for a government to get somebody they might not agree with.
But this is the issue. And no, you're right, you're making a valuable point. I'm speaking ideally, and you're speaking from a realistic perspective. I cannot fault you, I cannot blame you. At the same time, I would have hopes that this is something that we could potentially view as an alternative or as the alternative.
And I think one of the reasons or one of the things that an argument in favor of your perspective is the fact that I really do believe that politicians do not understand the benefit of being transparent, or at least being perceived to be transparent and being perceived to be objective. Because if you got somebody who does not necessarily agree with you, once you could work with them, right? Say somebody from a previous administration, whether it is from Patrick Manning administration or even from the other side, or an economist who has not been political. But my point is, you get somebody who does not seem to be politically motivated to make decisions on behalf of what's best for the party so that the party could be re-elected. Because, again, most economists don't agree with the amount of social programs we've had. In the long run, it's not sustainable. And I'd just like to point out something. Right now in Europe, yes, we have this energy windfall because of the price of gas. Ironically, what was the fear? What will Europe do over the winter? Not only is Europe's reserve capacity more or less full in just about every country that has storage tanks to get them through the winter. We're talking over 90%, in some cases at 100%. Ships with gas, apparently there's a line of ships off Spain or some European country. They can't offload because there's nowhere to sell this gas to. They've reached a point where for a short period, they had to pay to offload their gas.
Yeah.
Not only that, there's also the fact that the winter might be warmer than usual. So the demands of gas might dip. And then the economies generally want to get to a balance point. So we could see the price of energy, readjust itself for the situation, and all of this wonderful revenue might go away within a year or two, and then we come to the same situation we were in back in 2019, which is basically to say, when energy prices are low, what are we doing? Because Embed had a press conference 2020, early 2020, where the price of oil was like $19. We didn't get to the negative just yet. But the energy revenues were so bad that he called a press conference to try to explain the situation, and he didn't necessarily have anything good to say.
As I said, overall, I think, to summarize, essentially, as much as we've focused mostly on Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert, and Fitzgerald Hines, the Minister of National Security, those are the individuals whom we have focused on the most. I think what we should also ask is whether or not, again, in what way has these ministers developed or contributed positively to the development of Trinidad and Tobago? We have filled, and this is not only for the People's National Movement government, this is governments past and present. And again, it's something that we have the opportunity that we can change and can learn from. When you fill your cabinet with loyalists to the party leader, or with loyalists to the political party, who quite frankly do not deserve to be there, who have nothing by their name to suggest that they've been there, who have not achieved anything, and quite frankly are career politicians. I asked, what has Camille Robinson-Regis, who has been in politics for years, what has she done? What has she contributed to Trinidad and Tobago's development? I don't know. Maybe you can educate me.
I have a better question. What runs well in government? Just show me one thing that runs well. There probably is one thing. But then, of course, the question is, if you could find one thing, find me a second thing. Because the PTSD isn't being run well. I don't think Carl is in a good situation. I'm not entirely sure to what extent that could be managed better, right? The airport situation is questionable with regards to the expectations of the tourism. I don't think that the ease of doing business is anywhere close where we need it or want it to be. So only the big conglomerates could get through because, you're not going to tell those large holding companies that are in charge of, that's a significant employer of the population, you're not going to tell them no, right? The foreign exchange situation, has that been improved with all of the extra revenue we've gotten? It doesn't seem so.
Monopolies in the markets in Trinidad and Tobago are untouchable.
Right?
Government see them as untouchable.
Crime isn't doing well, education isn't doing well, sport isn't doing well, arts and culture is not doing well.
I'm sorry, I forgot that we actually have a sports ministry. Thank you for reminding me.
Exactly, right? Agriculture is not doing well. What is doing well? What part of public administration is handled efficiently?
Well, I'll tell you what, as we conclude this debate, there are a couple of things that the government have been successful of. Fitzgerald Hines is successful at failing. We're successful in the sense that we can guarantee you that you're not going to get a decent water supply. And even though there is a water schedule, we can guarantee you that we're not going to stick to that schedule.
I forgot works and transport, with road works.
Rohan Sinanan is virtually opaque in my opinion. We can guarantee you that there's going to be a pothole which is going to destroy your tire, which is going to destroy your shocks. We can guarantee you that there's going to be a massive leak. We can guarantee you that guns are going to continue to flow into Trinidad and Tobago. We can guarantee you that the scanner at the port in Port of Spain is going to continue to be down. And we can guarantee you that we will come and tell you all these things. We're going to say it in the most delightful manner. We're going to fool you. And we can guarantee you that many of you are going to fall for it. Still wave your flag, be happy, and jump up and down. Even though you yourself not satisfied, party politics reigns. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. Only on your content capital, WESN.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. only on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Delve into the exciting world of neurology. The brain is an electrical organ. If the brain doesn't get enough blood with food and oxygen to it, it's not able to supply the electricity to the rest of the body. If that happens for a prolonged period enough time where the brain stops getting blood, part of the brain dies. Essentially, that's a stroke.
Hey guys, I'm getting a little nostalgic here, sitting on the blocks at the pool. Today we're going to talk a little bit about swimming. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce, the mega laugh festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Son, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Secret Side Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, DJ music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland!
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, on Monday, we do have the TTPS Media Ambassador, that is Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, here, of course, to speak about, well, the ongoing situation with crime in the country, to communicate with us the intentions of the TTPS, and when and if necessary, to face the tough questions from both us and the public. That will be later on. He is here today to speak with regards to the role of the population, of citizens with regards to the fight against crime, as a continuation as to some of the questions and comments we had from callers last week, Friday. So first of all, good morning, ASP Ali. Great to have you here to stand up and to face the fire, as you can say on national TV, with what is a very unfortunate crime situation right now, as we've outlined earlier.
Yeah, it's nice to be here again. Unfortunately, we already crossed the 500. And if the projections stay on course, I mean, we expect to get the highest, right? So we will try our best to see how we could keep it under that. But
I see the smile on your face as you're suggesting that.
Yeah, because that's a big question. That's a big ticket question. A lot of persons going to ask, where are we going to end, right? And that comes to the fact that it come back to the whole situation we were discussing last week, Friday, where some questions came up from the public. How could they help, or what do they expect the police to do, and what they expect from the public. Now, there's a lot of different things that people would come up and say that why should we help the police? That the police has been paid for this, that is their job. We don't trust the police corrupt, the police too lazy. I mean, there's a number of negatives that they could come and say about the police, and in the context of why should they lend support. But the reality is, Trinidad and Tobago belongs to us, and we all have our part to play within this whole situation with respect to crime. We have the public have a role to play, and if they play their role in the best manner that they can, we can see some significant change. But they need to play their role, and everybody needs to play their role, because every community in Trinidad and Tobago is unique. What they accept in their community is different. within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
And we have this, the police service, a couple of years now, we have sent out, we have started this thing called see something, say something. Right? The concept is that if you see something, say something. It does not mean in some person's mind that you have to be a witness. And the context of a witness, they believe that you have to go and give evidence in court. No, you don't have to be a witness to do a witness on that context to give evidence in court. It's about sharing information with the police and information generally across the board as to what you see in your neighborhood, in your communities, that is not sitting right with you. Right? For example, we may see strange vehicles in a neighborhood. But do we pay attention to the vehicles and take the vehicle number because it may not be a vehicle you're accustomed to seeing in the area?
Right.
Who you share that information with? That is where the police service is working towards building the trust and confidence in the public to work together with us, in partnership with us. You may not want, you may know a police officer that you have some confidence in. You may give that officer the information, but you may not want to be. You may want to be anonymous. So you call. So we have the opportunity to call 555-800 tips. These little pieces of information builds a bigger picture and gives us give investigations and investigators and investigations an opportunity to unearth a little more than you believe is happening.
Now, while there will be some situations where that would be good because, say, you know, it's just a random car that you're not accustomed to. You don't know if there's anything criminal or potentially criminal to be committed going on. But with regards to witnesses, though, I do have to ask, to some extent, is the population willing enough to be witnesses in prosecutions? Because one of the things is, by all reports, we have intelligence, we have information. What we don't have is enough evidence to prosecute some of these things because we very rarely see in the papers arrests and convictions being touted. Some of the high-profile cases were interdiction of smuggling, but no arrests were made. You know, some murderers are caught, yes, but a lot of these gang warfare type murders, we don't see arrests for those. We do have the anti-gang bill. It has its own burden of proof, which might not be easy to meet. But, you know, the evidence now, is it that the population is just too scared? And can the police assure the population, well, no, we need this and we could help protect you?
Well, we have two aspects of it. We don't depend on witness statement only as form of evidence. We have other scientific methodologies that we utilize to gain other evidential values to bring forth that could corroborate and give strength to the evidential value for court. So yes, we may need witnesses, but we do not always use that in that context. So we have to marry them with the different scientific technologies to build a case against an individual. Right?
Let me ask you, Acting SB, and thank you very much for coming on the program once more. You know, I hear you, I agree with you, and I too will share the message that citizens have a role to play. The Trinidad and Tobago belongs to the citizens. Really, this is our nation. We should be fighting back, and fighting back in whatever capacity that is within the realms of justice. And there are those that will try to take justice into their own hands out of frustration and fear. We will deal with that if that happens. It probably is already happening. I remember stories of vigilante justice arising out of central Trinidad. Anyway, if it is that the TTPS cannot guarantee the safety of citizens, if the TTPS, at least within the eyes of the public and public perception, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is not doing their job and is not doing a good job. Essentially, they're getting paid but not doing their part. Now, I'm speaking solely from citizens' eyes. How is it that you could look at me and preach to me to do my part? Because I understand your messaging, but you are essentially asking me to do the things that I should do as a citizens that y'all are not doing, that y'all are paid to do. So, it's a conflict for me. You're trying to inspire me, but you're not practicing what you're preaching.
And I understand where you're coming from, because that's some of the issues that we have, and the negative side of how the public would look at it and say, how should I say, the counter our messages of lending support, right? As per the issue of witnesses, let me just say right now that we have not lost a witness under the witness protection program.
But thank God you all have done good in one area.
So that is a positive for us. Now, if I would look at the context of a witness, when you go into a program for a witness protection program, there are requirements of the witness protection program. There are certain guidelines that you have to follow, and you have to accede to all of those guidelines in order for you to benefit from the witness protection program. There are persons who wish to be witnesses, but they do not want to go with the guidelines. So we have different situations with respect to that. So we're not going to the witness protection aspect of it. We're just talking about giving information. And yes, you would say to a lot of the public will say that that's our job. We are getting paid for that. Yes, we are being paid to be police officers, to enforce the law. How can we enforce laws when persons are insisting on breaching the laws? So can a police officer be in every community, physically working in every community 24/7? No, they can't. Could we put a police station in every district, in every police community? No, it can't.
Hold on, Acting SP, I'm sorry to cut you. I hear you. But I have seen patrols. I have seen, first of all, with respect to the law, I can't quote the exact law they talk about. I know you're not supposed to blast music loud. You need permission from the EMA, any property to play music. I have seen police pass in front of supermarkets and groceries that are blasting music. For example, I spoke last week, Monday on Diwali. This supermarket is blasting soca music. You spoke to them, you tried to ask them, they turn up the volume. You call the police, the owner of the supermarket is a former police officer. So he has a contact in the station. They call him and whatnot, right? I see police patrols pass on the Eastern Main Road. You're not supposed to park on the main road, right? They never stop anybody. Simple little things like that. So police see crimes being committed, whether it be very minor crimes, offenses against the law. You have police at different junctions. You see cars breaking the traffic lights all the time. The police just remain there. So the thing is, I hear you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I can see that the police are also seeing people are committing offenses that are against the law, minor as it may be, and not doing anything about it.
There is a little bit of irony to your statement. And now, this might not necessarily be all that effective. But to what extent do we have a proper mechanism where a member of the public sees the police, to some extent, either committing a minor infraction or overlooking a minor infraction, and have the capacity to report that in to like a higher authority to try to get that rectified?
Well, we do have that mechanism through the Police Complaints Authority and the PCA.
Well, I mean, the part of the problem is the confidence in the PCA also might not be high enough.
That may be something that I cannot speak on with respect to that. But let me bring back to the issue of the see something, say something issue. The police may have passed and dealt with that. But let's deal with the individual. The individual knows that breaching a traffic light is an offense. And when you go and drive, get a driver's permit, you have to do a regulation, you tick off that as an offense. But you're still willing to commit it, and you're still doing it, right? Because why? The presence of a police officer is there to inhibit you from doing it? No, you intend to breach the law there. You are waiting for a police to tell you, do not breach the law. And that is where that is stage we're at. We want policing, that every single body needs to be policed as to what is right and what is wrong. You have a civic responsibility that the laws of Trinidad and Tobago states that drinking and driving under the influence, under the influence of alcohol. You go to a party, you know that is an offense, but you still do it. What about your family members who in the vehicle? Is anyone responsible enough to say, Sean, you have drunk enough. You cannot drive this vehicle now.
Yeah. Actually, Acting SP, hold on that thought. I like this conversation that we're having. We have to break for news on the hour, but when we return, well, we'll get more into this, and we'll open up the phone lines this morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after this.
Here is your WASN News on the Hour. My name is Sean Michael Small, and thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Munilal slams government for lack of care towards citizens. PTSC to add 300 buses to its fleet. 2 firearms and a quantity of ammunition discovered in Laventil. And internationally, twin blasts kill 100 in Somalia. Now for the details. Opposition MP Dr. Rudal Munilal has slammed the government for the lack of proper care shown, mainly at the nation's schools and hospitals. He referred to a recent incident where an area of the San Fernando hospital became flooded and the patient's care was seemingly compromised.
You had a healthcare worker taking a piggyback ride on an orderly, pushing a wheelchair with a patient. And the health authority response was amazing. They said, don't worry, it did not compromise healthcare. So their attitude to that is, don't worry, anybody who has to get a pill, get a pill. But that cannot be the response, because I don't think we build hospitals for water on the ground and for jockey back riding and so on. That has serious implications.
Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan has admitted that the Public Transport Service Corporation does not have the fleet of buses to service necessary routes. He, however, said that an additional 300 buses are expected to be added in the near future. The minister was speaking during a ministry retreat on Saturday.
PTSC will not attract the traveling population. We recognize that, and there are several factors for that. PTSC, one, PTSC does not have the fleet that is required right now to do the routes that the population requires us to do. The government have taken a decision to fix that problem, where we're going out for a tender to increase the fleet. PTSC told us that they need 550 buses. They have just about 265 buses right now.
2 pistols along with 5 rounds of ammunition were discovered by officers of the Interagency Task Force while officers were conducting mobile patrols in the area of Rock City, Laventil on Saturday. During the patrol, officers observed a group of men gathered in the vicinity of an abandoned garage disposal unit. The men looked in the direction of the police vehicle and immediately ran in different directions, making good their escape. The officers conducted a search of the vicinity where the men were congregating and found in a bushy area 1 black plastic bag which contained a .380 pistol fitted with a magazine, a .38 special revolver, and 5 rounds of .357 ammunition. Internationally, twin car bomb explosions near a busy junction in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, killed at least 100 people, President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed said. Among the victims who were massacred were mothers and their children in their arms. The president blamed the Al-Shabaab militant group for Saturday's attack, which targeted the education ministry. Well, that's news on the hour on WESN. My name is Sean Michael Small, and thanks for watching.
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce. The Mega Laugh Festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians, Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Sun, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Secretary Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference. difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, DJ music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland!
Well, welcome back to Talking Points. As we continue the conversation, just before we open up the phone line, thank you very much once more to Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, Media Ambassador of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, for joining us. You know, Acting ASP, I hear you. Again, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're suggesting or stating, because ignorance, Trinidad and Tobago has become such an ignorant society. For whatever reason, or ignorant to what? Many things. Then there are people with a certain level of ignorance that think that the law or rules and regulations do not apply to them. So it's become normalized. To me, it seems as though there are those in TNT who are not mature enough to handle themselves or their own affairs. It seems as though everybody has to be principled. Minor example again. These, for example, a gate with a no parking sign. Or a gate with a do not block driveway sign, because you never know what could happen in an emergency. This happened to me a couple weeks ago. 2 signs on the gate, somebody parked in front of the gate. Saw the sign, got out of the car, stand up. I said, you can't park there, there are 2 signs on the gate. I'm coming back now, I'll come back in 5 minutes. I said, no, you cannot park there, there are 2 signs, somebody's coming just now. Boy, I'm coming back now, I'm spending 5 minutes. And continues to walk off while I'm talking to him, point out. I says, if that car is still there in 2 minutes, I have to call the police. And guess what? I don't want to call the police for something like that. Why that man can't work with me and understand? There was a car park that was available right opposite to my gate. He could have parked there. He didn't want to, and I pointed it out. He walks back about 7 minutes later. Anybody come yet? No, you stupid fool. That was his reaction to me. But that's the society we're living in. And sometimes I can't blame police officers sometimes, but let's open up the phone lines, ladies and gentlemen. The number's on your screen. Call in and join us. Join Sean and I and the Acting ASP this morning. We have a caller line with us from Pissy Valley. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton.
Good morning.
I want to pick up on your conversation this morning about the Minister of Finance.
Okay.
And you all could not, to me, you all was a little harsh on him, and you all could not find nothing good about the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance.
So
I want to say some good things I want to say about the Minister of Finance. During the pandemic, no single public servant have lost their job to date in this country. We like to quote Mayor Motley and Barbados. In Barbados and Jamaica, Mayor Motley had was to send home hundreds of public servants home and go to the IMF. To date, Trinidad and Tobago have avoided the IMF, and the reason why the Prime Minister and Mr. Imbert said, if we go that route to the IMF, the first thing they will tell you to do is to send home public servants and disability grants and stuff that citizens get. So the good things about the Ministry of Finance so far to me is we avoid workers losing their job, and we have avoided the IMF and keeping the country stable. Right now, all over the world, England is in a mess in the finance. America is projected to go to a recession. We are still holding stable, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, by people having their jobs. Don't mind prices are high. People not lose. Nobody has lost their jobs in the public servant. So that is my good to talk about the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
I just want to tell you, caller, that even outside of COVID-19 pandemic, one government worker losing their job. You have to add things into context. I hear what you're saying. I know you're trying to balance it off with some good news. But when you get the opportunity, you see this erroneous view that the IMF is a big bad wolf. Caller, forgive me, I think you've fallen for the Minister of Finance rhetorica. I ask you to go and do your own research. Go and look up the rapid financing, it's the rapid financing instrument and the rapid credit facility of the IMF. Go read what that is. And then come back and let's debate as to Trinidad and Tobago not going to the IMF.
The other thing is, it's not clear that the public sector jobs that we have are all necessary, and there's no redundancy, and there's no bloat, right? So the fact that the minister admits that that's probably what the IMF is going to suggest, we do have to ask, maybe the IMF might suggest that because, economically speaking, that is the correct thing to do in the long run.
Like I said, go look up rapid financing facility, or financing instruments and rapid credit facility. Call on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, ASP.
Morning, sir.
You're back with us early in the week again. Now, I wanted to go down that road, but some conversation that you all were having, Keaton and Sean, but the fact that the ASP is there, I don't think there's an opportunity not to waste. So I will hold off my comments for later in the week.
Sure.
What you discuss. You know, ASP and Sean and Keaton, you know, we have, the police have is a conundrum as far as I see. We have, and the professor was upset with me the other day when he said, but I shouldn't say upset, but he said I was wrong when I said we have an inherently corrupt society. However, we have an inherently, what I would say, indisciplined society. And dealing with an indisciplined society, coupled with a police service, and this is in my opinion, a police service that seems to be grappling within itself, having to deal with elements of corruption, elements of indiscipline themselves. You know, I have gone to school with a lot of guys who became police officers. Some of them good police officers, some of them not good police officers. There's a gentleman that called in, I think he's from Dabadie, on that side, and he said he was batched with Stephen Williams. And he had spoken to some of those officers, some of those good officers. Some of those good officers, I know some of them because some of them are my family in South here. So I know some of them. My issue is I have seen in the police service, because of people that I know in the service, I have become fearful for the service itself, because of what I know from people who tell me stuff, present officers who tell me stuff, and I know that is a challenge. Yes, we wouldn't say it to us here, but I know it's a challenge for them in the service to try and mold this into where they want it to be. I would like him to comment on that for me.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much for your contribution. We're just going to have to hold off on that. We do have another caller waiting on the line from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am sorry. I am sick with the government and about everything, so I wish to talk about Brazil. Yeah. So yesterday we were looking at a new set of elections to see if planet Earth would be saved from Bolsonaro. But the irony again is that we had to choose between him and the Amazon and Lula and corruption. That was too close, 50.9 to 49.1. But Lula has vowed to rebuild, reunite the country, restore their place, because they have become an international pariah because of Bolsonaro. And most importantly, he will acknowledge the indigenous peoples. He wants us to arrive at zero deforestation, which increased exponentially under Bolsonaro because he encouraged, remember, investors to plunder the natural resources. But just to bring it here, speaking of zero, I heard Acting Commissioner Jacob this morning. I honestly have zero confidence in him. as he gives us more acronyms, more talking points, something with cups. He trusts the Ministry of National Insecurity. He wants us to have patience. I no longer have patience. I have zero patience, because 45 years is more than patient and more than complacent. Thanks.
Thank you very much, caller. We have another caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller from Diego Martin. Hello, good morning.
I just want to make a comment. Pertaining to the police, I know the police have it hard. They have a lot of work. They have been constant at duty since from Christmas and right down the road. And the fact is that, but they need to get here and deal with this thing. They've got to stop making excuses. The fact is that they're asking the public to help them out and say something when they see something is all well and good. But these fellas have some ammunition and guns there. Using the ordinary citizen man who cannot defend himself will be able to put themselves forward and do anything like that. You know, they are afraid because these guns, it's not just shooting one person, but they're spraying people and killing a whole number of people. So people must be afraid of these things. Police have to get together, strategize, and make some new strategies. These long-time plans they have get rid of all of them. Sit down, get some ideas of all sorts of people, not just inside the police force alone. Because in every institution, they have good people and bad people. And they have that in the police thing. Those who will be trying their best to do the best, we appreciate them a lot. So that is a situation that we have to deal with. Get together with other people and need advice. Because the advice they're getting right now is not working. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking my call, and have a very good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day as well. Well, acting SP, the floor is all yours, sir.
Well, you listen to the two comments that was made, right? And I agree with you. I want to thank that caller who actually acknowledging that the fact that we have a big challenge, right? Even the second caller, this previous caller, he acknowledging that we have some challenges also. Yes, we have good officers in the police service, and we also have those that are, I would say, not so good, as the caller mentioned. But these are things that we have to look at. The issue is that we are trying to inform the public and getting the public support. Persons believe that the public support means giving information as to who have a gun and who is a criminal. Simple things you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Take responsibility for certain things in your household as well as in your community, what you accept in your community within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. As we were talking about the playing of music. If you can't speak to your neighbor about the loud music or parking in front of your gate, right? Does it have to lead to the police coming and telling your neighbor that?
I don't want it to.
It
Nobody
should not.
wants exactly.
It should not.
Work,
It
work
should not.
work with me. I
Right?
work with you.
So that is why we are telling the public, you need to do your part with respect to those type of things.
Well, we have two callers on the line. The first caller from San Fernando, I believe. Shigonas. Good morning, caller.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good morning.
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 I hear you repeated this statement, but the Prime Minister says he have done his work. And you never made the obvious comment. What is his work?
But we left it for you to say, Professor.
No, he himself said it. As I told you before, he criticized Kamala Prasad, successor regime, for being 4 years behind in administrative report. And that is the work. Now he is more than 4 years behind. And you never repeat these things. We hear people talking about you can't put a policeman on every corner. I have gone to quite a few countries and I never see a policeman on every corner. And they talk about police presence. Police presence in those countries have an effect because police enforce the laws. I have shown you here the entire Eastern Main Road. There's no parking. And people, including policemen, ignore it. Your guests ask for people to call in and tell them where you have problems. There you have law breaking. Let them go and do it. Nearly all the dual carriageway in Trinidad say keep left, except when overtaken. And there you have people on the overtaking lane going very slow, and you see policemen on the bicycle watching them, and nothing is being done. That's the next thing I'm telling them, no. so he can go and deal with it. Any questions, or as usual?
No, Professor.
Professor,
we have another caller.
but thank you very much for your contribution. Excellent as usual. We have a caller on the line with us from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Good morning.
Keaton started off the morning with saying that somebody was parking in front of his gap. And the scenario that played off. That exact same thing happened to me. But it was a policeman who did it.
There's a policeman who did it?
Exactly. So who do I call now?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Ironically.
I wish I could help you. I don't know.
Caller. I mean, so, and herein lies the problem. When you
have one tough job.
But it's not just him. When you have multiple systems that are all kind of like working halfway or not at all, the Police Complaints Authority, is that functioning as it should? The judiciary, is that functioning as it should? Because I did ask off here, the ASP, if the police actually, sent everybody who had a minor infraction in front of the magistrate, that system might completely collapse with the amount of delays already as it is. So we have to, I'm not saying that just because of that we don't enforce it properly, but I'm just pointing out where we have multiple failings.
We have a call on the line, but again, the message is stressed. Work with me, I will work with you. We could help each other. But if your ignorance trumps, then if a police charges you, don't get on with the police.
That pun is always going to be.
Look at yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Porter Spain, Blanchy Shares. Woodbrook.
I am not here this morning to speak about police matters, because sometimes I believe the more we speak of police matters, the less progress we make. I want to address the issue that was a key point in your discourse this morning about the issue of public service and the efficiencies of public service. Let me say to you that as I sit here this morning, I'm recovering from some cataract surgery. And I don't know that the service you get in the private medical system is any better than what you get in the public medical system. When you go to these private doctors and you have to pay upwards of sometimes $800 for a visit, you have to wait and wait and wait. It's not in one medical clinic, it's whether it is heart, it is eye, it is ear, whatever, you have to wait and scrub benches. And oftentimes, if you raise it with a professional, that person is more angry with you than you should be angry with him. I want to believe that Trinidad really needs a purge. And in getting that purge, we may well be able to deal with all the ills that confront us. Make no bones about it. The private sector is as bad as the public sector in terms of deliveries now. And that is where we should concern ourselves. If a private sector company is primarily concerned about generating revenue, or is that private sector company concerned about delivering good health care? You follow?
Yeah.
If you go by a mechanic, it's the same story. And the list goes on and on. But we don't talk about that. We bash the public service all the time. And the reality is this, that all that how the public service is constructed and contrived does not allow for the kind of corrective action that the private sector should be able to apply in terms of the rules and regulations. But yet the service in these institutions, these private institutions, are now comparable to what you get in a... And I want to point out...
Caller, thank you. Caller.
Let me make this point, please.
Very quickly, caller.
There are some public health centers, when you go there, you feel welcoming and at home. If you go to the Blanchy Shares Health Center, and I don't want people to leave all over the country and come up there. When you go to the Blanchisseuse Health Center and you meet Dr. Sami, you begin to understand what medical health care is all about. I rest my case this morning.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
I will just say quick, the idea of a purge, it's very, very enticing. Ooh, we should just purge, we should just get rid of everybody, start from scratch. The problem is who determines what gets purged, how we start from scratch, what comes next, who determines that? Those things, very easy to have corruption because absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Your point is not invalid, caller. Your point is received. However, if I continue to willingly pay $800 to visit a doctor in a private healthcare institution, coupled with the fact that even if the private sector, the services I receive from the private sector, as bad as it may be, is still better than the service that I receive in the public sector, then there's always an argument against the public sector. Understand that. So I'm not saying that we should accept mediocrity and poor quality, but I'm also suggesting that people are going to accept 1 or 0.1% better service and pay the $800 for it.
You're going to always have a problem with public health care in some capacity. You're just going to have it, right? So private is supposed to, in theory, make up for whatever the shortfall is. I think they both have their own roles. However, I do believe that, yes, maybe customer service is just a problem generally across the board in both private and public institutions. I want to also say quick, when one of the callers mentioned, the commissioner said, please be patient. I think I want to caution them against such remarks because now is not the time for patience in this sort of situation. And the Minister of National Security, he said something similar a couple of months ago. He said, I know you're frustrated, but please don't be frustrated.
No. Please be more patient. Please exercise more patience.
I know you've run out of patience, so please exercise more. I think we've reached the point where patience is not something that that makes it sound like the speaker, first the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner, is out of touch.
These ministers are actually a prime example of what is wrong with our public sector. If you're underperforming, not doing your job, making many mistakes, and basically just a complete failure in your role and position, yet you're still able to retain that authority, then that's right there is a bad example and the prime reason for what we're in. Now, as we conclude, thank you very much to all our callers for their contribution this morning. Very much well received, everybody, for expressing their opinion and their thoughts with us. To the caller from Petty Valley, thank you very much for trying to share some good news with me. However, I remain unconvinced. To the acting ESP, you have a very difficult job on your hands. Nevertheless, I wish you all the very best, and we look forward to welcoming you again next week, Monday.
Thanks very much. And yes, we do in fact have a big challenge. Challenge is not in the context of dealing with crime alone. It's the challenge that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is now trying to change the entire mindset of the public to deal with situations like what you just mentioned earlier. How do we get those communities to take responsibilities for their actions when they're of the opinion that the police is the one supposed to be taking responsibility or managing or doing my job, which is treating with you, right? With respect to the issue of traffic on the roads and no parking along Eastern Main Road. Yes, Eastern Main Road is in fact a no parking zone, but the question will be asked to a lot of persons. Who gave permission for all those businesses to be placed along the entire Eastern Main Road when no parking has been allowed for that? If the police should enforce the law where we have no parking along the entire Eastern Main Road, how does that affect the economics of Trinidad and Tobago?
We will, hold on, you open up a new topic there, because the thing is, I will say, we will focus on town and country planning. Again, your point is reasonable. But with all due respect, acting ASP, it sounds as though you're trying to make an excuse for police officers still feeling to enforce the law.
And I'm saying to you, no, I am not. I am saying to you that...
I get it, town and country planning is a mess in itself.
But the issue is that we're not making a thing. what is your civic responsibility? You know for a fact that businesses along this area, you do not have parking. Are you taking any corporate responsibility or civic responsibility informing your patrons do not park on the road for a reasonable particular time? That is my context.
And I receive it in that manner.
I won't doubt that there's a directive in order to lighten the enforcement because of that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much once more. Acting ASP Ashraf Ali, Sean Michael Small, I'm Keith Shaw. Just remember, today is a good day. Oh boy, to have a great day and a great start to the week ahead. And should all go well, and hopefully it will, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Secretary Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many